All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Naisha, the program manager here with Holden Space Foundation, and I'm thankful that we have today's workshop. And I do want to thank everyone for joining us today. So I want to definitely introduce our host for today. We have Dr. Janae Taylor. She is a licensed psychotherapist in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where she owns and operates Consulting and Taylor Counseling and Consulting Services. She specializes in providing mental health services exclusively to the Black community. Janae's expertise has been featured in New York Times, Shape, Refinery 29, Cosmopolitan, NBC, CBS, and many others. As the founder of My Black Business, Dr. Taylor has created a digital space that provides emotional wellness resources, workshops, programs, and a podcast for Black entrepreneurs to check in their mental health and each other. Dr. Janae Taylor, we're so excited again to have you, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Naisha. What a wonderful introduction. I certainly appreciate that. Hello, everyone. I also see some familiar names, so I'm excited about. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending your lunch hour with me, truthfully, on a Tuesday. I appreciate that. I am going to share my screen, and we're going to get started. Okay, Naisha, you have to let me know if if it pops up correctly.
Absolutely, I got you. And we're all set.
Oh, come on. I love that when a plan comes together. All right. So I think so many of you may or may not know that August is Black Business Month. So if you are a Black entrepreneur, I hope that you do something this month to celebrate yourself. If you are not a Black entrepreneur, but know some in your life, please check on your Black entrepreneur friend because we are out here working really hard. So what a timely presentation for August to talk about how as entrepreneurs we can do a better job of taking care of ourselves. So if I wanted to make this presentation really short, can we just pencil in self-care as entrepreneurs? No. That is not the way to go. But I have a stronger case as for why I'm saying no, and I will take you into that. But as Naisha mentioned, my name is Dr. Janae Taylor, and now I am going to get into our agenda for today. So let's talk about our journey over this next 45, 50 minutes. I will do a little bit more of an introduction and share a little bit more about me and who I am and why in the world I'm talking to you about this particular topic. We'll review entrepreneurship, particularly Black entrepreneurship, Black business owners, and what that landscape looks like for us, and how we might make some missteps when it comes to self-care, and then how we can course correct and get back on the right track when it comes to integrating self-care in a way that works well for us. And then finally, my hope for all of us is that we're able to walk away from this experience together with some next steps and some commitments. And all of these things, I will be talking about Black businesses and Black business owners a lot. But truly, if you are not an entrepreneur, these same messages hold true for all of us, that we just have to do a better job of making ourselves and our needs a priority. I'm going to make the case for that over the next few minutes. Okay, well, who am I? My name is Dr. Janae Taylor again, and I bring you greetings from Virginia Beach, Virginia, where it is a beautiful 80 degrees. I had to look that up because last week we were dealing with Hurricane Debbie and it was rainy. And then 2 weeks before that, it was 100 degrees, but it has finally settled out. And it is a beautiful sunny day. So this helps with my mood. And that's important for you all to know too. What are the things that impact you throughout your workday? And for me, a warm, beautiful day certainly makes my day go by, my work day go by even better. But I am a private practice owner, like Naisha mentioned. I am the owner and operator of Taylor Counseling and Consulting Services. I am a Black entrepreneur as a result of that. I like to call myself the Black folks therapist. Now, why did I put that in there? Well, in starting the business, particularly the private practice, I knew from the very beginning that I wanted to center Black folks as my clientele. And I have been in business since 2016. And it took me a while to figure out how to put that down. How can I secretly say that I really just only want to center Black folks? And then finally, after some trial and error, I just put it on there that my services are tailored to the Black community. It took me a while to figure out how to do it. When it occurred to me, just write it on it. So in addition to putting particular colors down, and I was like, well, maybe if I just put my picture on the website, maybe if I say cultural sensitivity, maybe if I, no, I just finally had to write it down. So I make sure when I do presentations that I put that on there, that is my stamp, that I'm the Black folks therapist, or one of. I am a clinical supervisor, so I provide supervision to those who are coming into our field and looking to be therapists and counselors in the future. I'm a mental health podcaster. So like Naisha mentioned, I have a podcast, Minding My Black Business. It's currently on hiatus, but we are working on a rebrand. And the goal for that, or the space for that, is for Black entrepreneurs to check in on their mental health and each other. And so part of the rebrand is going to be focusing on our relationship with work. Because even in my own entrepreneurial journey, my ideas about work and what it means to me has changed. As you might imagine, someone who goes through all this school and gets their undergrad and master's and doctorate, that they're really committed to working and making their career a huge part of their life. And that's certainly where I was. But after some time, currently, I'm not there anymore. My ideas about work have changed. And so the podcast is going to reflect that when we launch it early next year. I'm an emotional wellness consultant. So that means that I provide trainings and workshops and sometimes small group exercises. I've worked with entrepreneurs directly, some who've had communication issues or relationship issues or their own relationship with money. And we work through that to kind of get them to a better spot. And then finally, a community organizer. So one of the things about entrepreneurship is that it is so very lonely and so very isolating. Now, we spend so much time focused on building our business up. Oftentimes that puts a strain or creates some distance in our closest and most significant relationships. So I learned that as a result of building. And one of the things I wanted for myself, selfishly, was I wanted my own community of Black entrepreneurs around me for accountability, for support, to see myself in other folks. And so this is who I am when it comes to work. Okay, so how did entrepreneurship find me, right? I did not dream as a little girl of being a business owner. I did not do that. And my family can attest that they had never heard me say that. I did have ideas that I would go into private practice, but for some way, I did not connect that as meaning I would have to own a business to be in private practice. I just envisioned this very comfy office, as you all can see, where I would just show up as I was nearing retirement, see my 2 or 3 clients, and then go on about my merry way. It did not occur to me that that meant I had to start a business. So essentially, my entrepreneurship journey started as a means of escape. And this is something that I hear a lot from other Black entrepreneurs. I was in a working situation that was becoming untenable. And so what I mean by that is I'd worked in a lot of different environments and doing therapy. I'd worked at pediatric hospitals, community mental health, juvenile justice systems, women's homeless shelters, school systems. So I worked in a lot of different places. And I finally landed in working in college counseling. And I really enjoyed college counseling because it allowed me to do both therapy. I could do presentations. I could work with student groups. I could learn all these new things. So I just felt young and vibrant when I was working in this industry. Now, what also happens is for those of you who are connected to academia and education, and happen to be on a student affairs side, you know that they want us to wear a lot of hats. And so because we were in the counseling center, they thought we would be helpful just any and everywhere. They had us participating in move-in day. They had us participating in the exam jam. We also were expected to have an after hours availability. So now we're working after hours, carrying the phone for a week at a time. And then, so as a result of that, I kind of knew that. So none of that was a surprise. And some of that was enjoyable because I got to see students in different environments with their friends in their leadership. So that was cool. And as a result of that, I would bring things to my department. I became the training director. We created a leadership team. And my director really appreciated my contributions and would keep giving me all these titles. The titles now, you heard me say that. Titles without compensation is what was happening. And so I would get all these accolades on paper and that type of thing. But again, no compensation to match that extra work contribution. And then finally, our director decided that they wanted us to be available to students when we are having inclement weather. So like I mentioned before, I'm in Virginia Beach, which also means I happen to be near the water. And we are considered a city or area that is below sea level. So much like New Orleans, it doesn't take a lot of rain for us to experience flood. So if we're having a particular rainy day, or if a hurricane decides it wants to come off the ocean, or we happen to be just north enough that we also are getting snow. So any one of those three things could create a situation where it's inclement weather and they kind of close down the streets and that sort of thing. They expected us as college counselors to be ready to respond to any mental health emergency on the student campus. So what they wanted us to do, or what they told us to do, was to stay at the hotel on campus. And we were to be ready to respond to any sort of crisis, mental health crisis that was occurring during the hurricane, flood, or snowstorm. Now, the question then became, what about our own family that we're trying to keep safe? Or what about my own safety? Well, we'll get the police department to bring you to the student. Well, if the police department can get to the student, then the police department can take that student to the hospital. So there became this situation between the administration and those of us providing the care, where they were wanting us to almost be police adjunct to that. They wanted to make sure that we were keeping the student body safe in ways that extended beyond what we were trained to do and extended beyond our own ethics in the profession. So those combination of things became, for me, like a situation where I got to get out of here. I started in this space thinking this was the ideal work environment for me, and that I get to work with students in a relaxed environment. But then it became very, very toxic in that way. And so I had to get out of there. And I knew if I went to any other type of environment, if I went back to community mental health, if I went back to another agency, some of these same things, if not more, would be expected of me. And this was something I no longer wanted to be a part of. Now, fortunately, it happened to be a time where some of my other colleagues were wanting to start their own practice as well, because I had no idea how to make this leap. And so the three of us got together and we would meet every 2 weeks for probably about 8 months. So even once we had left the organization, and we kind of left in staggering times, we would support each other as to how to build this business. But entrepreneurship found me as part of my escape plan. That's how I rolled into business. So you can imagine the amount of hunger and sometimes desperation I had when it came to making sure this business took off, and making sure it went well. So that is how entrepreneurship found me. And I'm telling you that so you can imagine my own state of mind, my own ability to take care of myself in terms of my well-being, if that's kind of in the back of my head. So when we all make this decision to jump into entrepreneurship, sometimes people have thoughts and feelings. So not only are you dealing with your own thoughts and feelings, you have to deal with other people's thoughts and feelings. And sometimes you'll hear things like, well, are you sure about that? Are you sure you want to do that? And I'm sure this is all something we've heard. What about that good job with those benefits, right? And then sometimes people will doubt how you can make an impact if somebody else is already doing what you are thinking about doing. Sometimes people can't see the vision of how you might get connected with customers or clients. How will people even find you? So all these things can plant seeds of doubt, impact your own motivation, your focus, your level of productivity. And so this is even how we're starting the beginning of the journey. So we're talking about how can you create a system where you are penciling in self-care when you're having to fight through all of these things, even at the very beginning of your business building journey. So let me set the stage even more by providing you with some data. So some of us like data and numbers, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of that. So the source that I'm using for this is the Kauffman Foundation. And if you haven't heard of them, they do a very good job of providing data around entrepreneurship as a whole. So this is for all entrepreneurships or all folks who are consider themselves to be entrepreneurs. I happen to pull out the pieces and the Pew Research Center. I happen to pull out the pieces that were significant to Black entrepreneurs because I thought these statistics were pretty interesting. So of Black businesses, less than, 66% of us have less than 10 employees, not 10% employees, but 10 employees. So we're talking about 2/3 of all of our businesses having less than 10 employees. And so what that means is that oftentimes the CEO is also the janitor, right? So they are wearing many hats, multiple hats, and all of them are just as important as the next. And so you have people who might be overtaxed, overstretched, overburdened, trying to do multiple things to get their businesses off the ground or even to maintain their businesses, frankly. And if we dig into that 66% even further, the majority of those businesses have 3 or fewer employees. So imagine what we're talking about with our online businesses, when we go to our restaurants, when we go to purchase our goods, how many folks we're talking about. And then 10% of all US-based businesses are Black businesses. And so because my algorithm is set in the way that it is, in my mind, that number is way higher. But that's because I have myself laser focused on Black businesses and Black business owners. But that's pretty significant that we're 10% of all businesses. And then 44% of Black business owners use their own cash to start their business. So this is called bootstrapping. So Black business owners are using their own cash to start their business. Now, this is significant because if you think about, if you're a part of a family and you are using the family income to fund the business, well, that means some things are getting cut back. Maybe that means we cut off cable and we're only doing internet. Maybe that means we're no longer doing those community sports. Maybe that means that, so these things that would appeal to the whole household are being sacrificed for the idea of this business. And that also might mean that the people in your household feel a way about that. They might be supportive, but still feel a way that household funds are going to that. Or maybe that means that entrepreneur, like what I did is I transitioned to another job. So maybe that means you have even less time with your family member because they've taken on another job and use that money to fund the business. So that's important to know as well. Now, 34% of Black business owners start their business because they want to be their own bosses. And so both of these scenarios, I am a part of that 44 and 34%. Like I said, I was exhausted in being in situations where people could dictate how I do my work with clients, which clients I saw, how long I could see them, and under which circumstances. And so I just knew I could do a better job at it. And so I got out of there and created my own business. And so we've talked about maybe what you're walking around with, and we've talked about what the data is saying when it comes to Black businesses, but this might be what the community is saying to you. So if you happen to have the chat nearby, I'm gonna try to see if I can catch some of this. What are some of the preconceived notions that you have either heard or maybe even said? You don't have to tell me if that's what you said, but what are some things that people say about Black businesses? Take a few seconds and type in what you've heard people say about Black businesses, and then I'm gonna skip to the other two and come back to that. So a lot of our first generation, a lot of us are first generation entrepreneurs, meaning we did not grow up in a household where there were other entrepreneurs. And for some folks, maybe it was a distant a relative or a play cousin or somebody in the neighborhood that had the candy store or whatever. But we didn't grow up in a situation where we watched somebody build a business, where we watched them figure out how to navigate taxes, where we watched them figure out how to do an inventory. We didn't do that. So we are really good at our jobs and really good at our particular career box, but owning a business is a whole nother thing within itself. And for me, it certainly has felt like moments where I've had to earn an MBA alongside building a business. What did I know about marketing and all these? I didn't know anything about that. So that pulls on us as well because we're having to kind of build as we go these particular skill sets. And I like to say entrepreneurship is humbling in that it will highlight the things that you do really well, but it also will highlight the things that you don't do really well. And some of the women-led considerations. Oh, the chat is up to 18. Let me check. Hold on. Let's see what y'all had to say. Yes, expectation of cheaper prices, products and service. Yep. Yes, indeed. Unprofessional. Yes. So I'm gonna go back to the preconceived notions, right? Yes. What I have found, these are some good answers. Don't have good customer service, disorganized. You all are on it. You all are on it. I have found that people are not very kind or don't speak very kindly about Black businesses. And they also don't have a lot of tolerance for error. And so, what I mean by that is we all can have our experiences with Target or Walmart where we go in, maybe we go into the store and they don't have what we're looking for. And then we'll just go buy something else. Or maybe we'll come back another time when they tell us it'll be ready. Or maybe we get something and it is damaged, right? And so we take it to them, they replace it, and we feel good about that purchase. Now, if we go to a Black business and we receive a damaged product, not only sometimes will we make it known to the Black business owner how disappointed we are, in our digital age, now we are posting it and letting people know what a terrible business this is because we have received a damaged product or good. Or if we go to that restaurant and they're cooking our food made to order and they make it known, and it has been 15 minutes and we expected our food in 5, then we want a free meal or we're never coming back and we're doing a video. So we're not very kind to our Black businesses. And if we are thinking about Black businesses who have less than 10 employees or less, and sometimes just 3, and they are managing all of that, you can just see the tension between the business and the customers and the clients that's just bound to exist. And so that is something that is so harmful to our Black businesses. It just doesn't make sense that we are so kind and forgiving to Walmart and Target and Amazon, even, right? But we don't extend the same grace to our Black businesses. And so when it comes to women-led considerations, so this was something that I learned along the way. As I mentioned before, I have a podcast, and what I would do is I would have some solo episodes, but I also would interview Black entrepreneurs. And there was a trend that was coming up. Now, if we think about a heteronormative family, what I learned is that if the male in that household was starting a business, then the family started the business. And what I mean by that is the spouse may be doing inventory. The kids might be responding to emails. He might be answering phone calls. So the family did the business. Now, if they're the woman, however, in that same setup, if she was the one who was starting the business, then she was starting the business. So once the dishes were done, once dinner was done, once everybody went to bed, she was up late at night managing the business. She was the one fine-tuning the website. She was the one doing inventory. So there is a whole nother burden to us if we are talking about women-led businesses where they are so compartmentalized that they don't want to burden the rest of the family, that they have now created a situation when they're creating more distance between themselves and the family. it's almost like an unintended consequence. So I want to protect my family by taking on the load, but what you're really doing is taking yourself out of the family unit. And then there's an assumption that the male will be supported because he distributes the workload, and the people in the family may or may not have a feeling about it, but they do it. And so there's something about us as women where we need to ask for help. Now that's a whole nother conversation, but I think this is just another way where this message comes up for us when it comes to running a business or even in our own career. Think about how we do that, how we work to protect our family when they clearly see us struggling. And just ask for help. Just ask for help. All right. So if we can make this picture just a little bit darker, and then I promise I'm gonna turn it around. So what happens to us as entrepreneurs when we are carrying around all these things that we're walking around with in terms of our own self-doubt, things that the systems are doing to us, either because they have chosen there's systematic racism or all sorts of things that's blocking our access to resources, as well as what our community is telling us, then we become riddled with anxiety. And I'm using that word to demonstrate how pervasive it is. I am working with entrepreneurs who decided to come into therapy, and kudos to them for that, who are just, oh my goodness, so anxious. And frankly, every entrepreneur I have met one that's not anxious. Now, I don't mean anxious in terms of they have a diagnosis, but they are some anxious. We are some anxious beings. We have very poor sleeping habits. We struggle with concentration. We struggle with things like making sure we are eating our lunch. We're just so focused on other things. We're so future focused and not present focus. We also do a really good job of faking well. So that's, how are you doing? I'm fine answer comes just, automatic off our tongues. And, I'm gonna defend us for just a second. Entrepreneurs, particularly Black entrepreneurs, are in a very interesting spot where they have to be both vulnerable, because really when people come and use our goods and services, they are coming because they're invested in the person behind the business. So we have to be both vulnerable and competent and all-knowing, right? So how do you do both? How do you do both? So the idea of responding to a question of how you're doing is I'm fine makes sense in that context. You have to portray a sense of confidence and competence to get people to buy into what you're selling in all those ways. And for some of us entrepreneurs, it might be really hard to gauge who's really asking because they really are interested, or they're really invested in my health, or if they're just trying to be nosy, or they just are being polite. And so sometimes we don't do a good job of evaluating who does that, or putting people in our corner that are really genuine asking how we're doing in a way that is meaningful, to help us get to a better place. And then finally, repulsed by self-care. Now I'm using the word repulsed on purpose because when I talk to my clients about self-care, they literally roll their eyes. And I have to explain to them, I can see you. I can see you rolling your eyes. And so I think part of it is because the word self-care has in some ways kind of lost its meaning, and people equate it to something that's so very small, when really I'm talking about a huge construct, something that should be woven into the daily fabric of our lives. And so they do things like they don't take time off, they don't have vacations, they don't even have lunch breaks where they're just having lunch and not doing work. Their work day bleeds into their personal life. So entrepreneurship can beat us up. It really can. And so I usually have to start with people who are particularly repulsed by self-care by breaking down what I am talking about when I say self-care. So here we go. Well, what is self-care? And so when I'm talking about self-care, I am talking about prevention. I am not talking about an intervention where something is going on and now we might need to go see a physician or take medication, or I am talking about prevention, and I'm talking about wellness. I am talking about what can we do to manage our stress, because we're not going to pretend that stress is not a part of our daily lives. But however, there might be some days when stress is at a 2, and there are some days when stress is at an 8. And you have systems in place to get you from an 8 down to a 6. Or you have created a scenario where you know today is going to be a stressful day, and you have something in place for either the evening or tomorrow to kind of help balance out what's tugging you. So the idea of feeling balanced, and most importantly, that we are doing small daily acts to integrate our relationship with self-care. And I like to equate self-care with self-love, because it is really a demonstration of the way in which you appreciate this life that we are given. So there's small daily acts. All right. So how can we, or how does this thing tend to go awry when we make our attempts as entrepreneurs to get into self-care? Well, we begin to neglect and avoid our needs, right? We take that good old laptop to bed, or we're on our phone responding to emails right before we go to sleep, or we haven't had an annual physical exam or eye exam since COVID. Okay, so like we do things that just slip right on off our radar for the sake of building our business, or maybe even for the sake of our family, that these are things that we have convinced ourselves don't need to be first. We also give fear too much power. And so maybe there's a point in every business. If we think about even McDonald's or Amazon, they've done things like change their logo. They've done things about change their policies. They certainly change their prices. And so in our own businesses, sometimes we become fearful that if we make a pivot or a change based on the market or even our own interests, that we're going to do something that will damage our business. That we want to remain relatable and accessible, almost to the extent in which the community has more power over your business than you do. And so this leads into the third point of putting others first. How much pro bono work are you doing? How many panel discussions are you doing for free? How many services and goods are you giving out for free? Now, nothing is wrong with that. And I certainly do some of those things myself, but I have it in such a way that it is a portion of what I do. And I recognize that for every quarter or for every year, that I can only do this a certain number of times, and then that's it. And so there have certainly been times where I've had to tell people, you know, I've met my quota of doing that for the year, but we can talk about next quarter, or we can talk about next year. And that's okay to do. That's okay to do, to not work so hard to accommodate others that we put ourselves in a bind. And so we can create a scenario and where we are just being terrible to ourselves when it comes to self-care. But there is someone who certainly knew that self-care needed to take a priority in order to be very, very successful. And Simone knew. So we have just walked out of the Olympics, and oh my goodness, it was a time, right? There are certainly some memorable moments. There have certainly been some memeable moments. And you know, our athletes showed up and shout out, and I appreciate that. But some of you might recall that Simone Biles withdrew from the 2020 Olympics due to her mental health. And she had a community and support network around her to do that. And she received so much backlash from us. Remember, I said that we could kind of be unkind if we don't understand things. And she showed up in 2024 in Paris and reminded us who she was, right? And so, and even was the flag bearer in the announcement of the 2028 Olympics in LA. So Simone knew. So if you can't do it for yourself, do it for Simone. Do it for her. All right. So our self-care requires us to be radical. It needs to be sustainable. It needs to be meaningful and adaptable. Now I'll explain what that means. When I say radical, it may require you to make some shifts that make other people uncomfortable. It may require you to end some relationships. It may require you to begin some relationships that you hadn't even considered. It also needs to be sustainable. Now, so if my self-care, if I'm saying to myself, I need to include more exercise in my daily life. I already know that I don't like running. I really don't like being outside because I don't like being too hot or too cold. I like being in the air conditioning. And so while I hate running, I enjoy dancing. So maybe I stay inside in the air conditioning and do my cardio is dancing rather than outside running. I enjoy swimming. Maybe I do that. I enjoy being on the elliptical. Maybe I do that. It needs to be meaningful. These need to be things that make me excited, make me happy, things that I am looking forward to, and that I will feel some relief from when it comes to my self-care. And so again, so I also enjoy massages, right? And so when it comes to sustainability, I'm not necessarily going to put on my calendar that I'm going to have a monthly $180 massage. That is not sustainable. I already know that my business is not set up like that. So I'm gonna be doing it, but maybe once a quarter, I do something in that way, and that is both sustainable and meaningful and adaptable because our businesses, our work, our lives ebbs and flows. There are moments where we have a little more access to things because we have more time on our hands in terms of summer, and other times where it's busier, and so we do something else instead of maybe that exercise class. Maybe we have something else that is smaller and easier to access. So our new relationship with self-care requires it to be radical, sustainable, meaningful, and adaptable. And so what this might actually mean, practically speaking, maybe this means we do a complete overhaul of our work hours. I certainly had to do this. I am not an early bird. My family can attest to this. I am a night owl, and no matter how I try to go to bed early and go to bed early and wake up early, it's just I am just a night owl. I also need to have my lunch break. So one of the things that I've done is I have put a protected lunch break all throughout the work week. I also know because I am not an early bird, I do not have 8 a.m. clients. Could I do it? Technically, I could, but it would be a miserable experience for me and the client. It's not something I do. Now at 10 o'clock, I come to life and we have the best time ever. It's time to schedule all of our annual checkups, making sure that all of our systems are fine-tuned, from the eyes, the ears, everything. Make sure we do that. Now, I also would add, if you happen to have a relationship with a therapist, this might be a time to check in. Because again, we are anxious beings. And sometimes we need somebody outside of ourselves to just kind of assess, like am I still in the safety zone when it comes to my anxiety? Or do I need to work on some things to pull that back in? I also would add, find your entrepreneurial community. I mentioned that a little earlier, and I'll actually introduce you to my community via pictures a little later. But don't try to do this business building alone. I remember I mentioned that it is an isolating experience, and it certainly is, but it doesn't have to be. You can find folks in your area, or maybe even in digital spaces, who are doing the work that you do, or maybe doing something very similar where you all could collaborate or just provide support to each other, provide resources to each other. And my entrepreneurial community certainly has done all that and more. And I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. And finally, this is probably the biggest one, to reevaluate your relationship with money. Now, why did I say that? Well, because part of the issue is sometimes we do these things and we throw our self-care to the side because bills need to be paid. Lights have to stay on. And so I recognize that sometimes we might have to have an extra long work day. But that also means that we need to be very careful about, okay, well, I know today is going to be a really rough day, but let me make sure on the weekend I have something that's going on. Or at least let me make sure I have prepped my meals or have my water ready, or tell my folks to check in on me because I know I'm going to, really be going at it for the next couple of weeks. Our relationship with money can drive us to do things that pull us so far apart from where we're trying to be. So that's something we need to make sure we check in about. So this is our commitment that we're going to make to ourselves. We are now saying, because we had, I've explained all the dangers and the ways in which we can do this well, is that we are now saying our boundaries are going to be non-negotiable. And our boundaries are, I like to think of them as our protections. These are things that we put in place for our rules of engagement of how to be with ourselves and others. And for some of us, this means getting comfortable with saying no. Now, that was something I certainly had to get used to, with saying no. And because I was really worried about people's opinions once I said no. But then I thought about something, and this is certainly something that I have heard other people say, and I like to call it the Chick-fil-A analogy. And so the analogy is, let's say it is a Sunday afternoon and you are craving Chick-fil-A. You just want those waffle fries and that lemonade, that frozen lemonade on a Sunday afternoon. And if you drive and you got the money, you could even pay double if you wanted to. Not saying that you should, but you could. And if you go up to Chick-fil-A and on a Sunday, say trying to place an order, what happens? The answer is nothing because they are closed. They are not going to open for you or your double pay. It doesn't matter what you got going on or what you want, but you can come back Monday or you can get those waffle fries on Saturday. And so their boundaries are firm and there's nothing we can do about it. There's no amount of hollering or fussing that's going to make them open on Sunday. Our boundaries need to be as strong as that people will adjust. That is really the key. People will adjust. Once they know what the rules are, they will absolutely adjust. Or they'll move on. And if they move on, they weren't meant to be around you anyway. And that's perfectly fine too. Our rest is mandatory. We must have proper sleep, a good sleep hygiene, create a situation where you feel at peace. Because the truth of the matter is, being a business owner, our work life is only one sliver of who we are. And for business owners, it can become our entire identity. And I certainly understand it because there's so much on the line. There's so much on the line. But you have to rest. It is just so important. Again, finding community. We are all agreeing that we're going to find a community, an appropriate community, not just a bunch of people who are going to say yes to everything you say, or people who are just being nosy, but people who you truly can trust. I happen to have not only my community, but I have a business buddy. So this is someone who I check in with, I think like every 2 weeks. We check in via Google Meet. And we talk about our business, we talk about particular projects, and this is someone who will tell me that is ridiculous. What you're saying makes no sense. And it doesn't feel like disrespect because I know this is coming from a place of genuine care and concern. And then also finally, that we know that a healthy me means a healthy business. When we are at our healthiest, we can make healthy decisions for ourselves, we can make healthy decisions for our families and our businesses. And so these are things that we are now choosing to commit to. So I said I was going to have you all meet my my community, and here we are. So this is my Black Therapist fam, and we meet about once a month. Since COVID, we've been doing a balance of digital and virtual. And so as you see, we have been all over the place. We had paint parties and parties at Black-owned restaurants. And 2 weeks ago, we went horseback riding. One of our Black therapists, she does equine assisted psychotherapy. And so we got to go out there, see her horses, see the farm, and get on some horses. And y'all, we had time. So certainly something I'll never forget. So I'm not saying these things in a silo. I'm truly working really, really hard to put these things into practice and speak about my own successes and errors for sure. And then finally, what we're going to do, I'm going to take you through an exercise. So we are going to do a guided meditation. It's going to take a few minutes, and then after that, we will open up for questions. So I am going to read through this, and yeah, I think we'll feel better on the other side of it. So I want you to take a moment to get into a comfortable position. You can either be seated, or if you want to lie down or stretch out, you can do that as well. But I want you to gently close your eyes and allow yourself to be fully present in this space. And as a Black entrepreneur, you embody the strength, the resilience, and creativity of those who came before you. So this meditation is a sacred time for you to connect for you to reconnect, with your inner power, prioritize your well-being, and embrace the abundant success that is your birthright. So we're going to begin by taking a deep breath, a cleansing breath in through your nose. Fill your lungs completely. Hold it for a moment, and then exhale slowly through your mouth, releasing any tension or stress. And with each breath, allow yourself to relax more deeply, letting go of any thoughts or worries. Inhale deeply, feeling the breath nourish your body. And exhale, letting go of what no longer serves you. Continue this rhythm and allow each breath to anchor you in the present moment, grounding you in a sense of calm and peace. Now bring awareness to the top of your head. Imagine a warm, soothing light gently resting on your scalp, melting away any tension. As this light travels down, it relaxes your forehead, your eyes, your jaw, bringing a sense of ease and comfort. Let this light flow down your neck and shoulders, releasing any burden you may be carrying. Feel it move down your arms, into your hands and fingertips, bringing in a gentle relaxation. As the light continues down your chest, back, and abdomen, imagine it nurturing every cell in your body, promoting healing and wellness. Feel it travel through your hips, your legs, feet, grounding you to the earth beneath you. This light is a reminder that your well-being is essential to your journey. You are deserving of rest, nourishment, and care just as much as you are deserving of success. Now envision yourself standing in a tall place that feels powerful and serene. Surrounding you is a vibrant energy, a blend of calmness, strength that radiates from within. This energy represents your inner wellness, your mental clarity, your emotional balance, your physical health. See yourself moving through the rest of your day with ease and making decisions that honor both you and your business and your well-being. Visualize a door in front of you, one that represents the next phase of your business journey. As you approach it, you feel a deep sense of confidence and readiness. And when you're prepared, open the door and step through. On the other side, there's a life where your success is in harmony with your wellness. Imagine a thriving business that supports your physical health, mental peace, and emotional joy. You are prioritizing your self-care, setting healthy boundaries, and making time for rest and rejuvenation. I want you to slowly begin to bring your awareness back to the present moment. Wiggle your fingers and toes, gently roll your shoulders, Take one final deep breath in and out. And when you're ready, open your eyes. I want you to carry this sense of wellness and empowerment with you throughout the rest of your day, knowing that prioritizing your well-being, you are building a sustainable and thriving business and life. Okay. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. And feel free to stay in touch. And I am here to answer any and all questions.
Dr. Janae, thank you so much for that.
All
If
right.
anyone would like to put questions in the chat, I can read it, or you can come off of mute. We have about 5 minutes. All right, we all enjoyed the relaxation exercise. I can attest as well. It gave me a moment to pause.
Exactly. Reading the chat now. Mhm.
Oh, well, I have a question. When someone is beginning to set the boundary that they are no longer available for maybe an ongoing meeting that they've had for family, possibly, how could they explain in a respectful way to their family members that I want to be there, but I'm, just doing something new?
Yeah. All right. So sometimes it's easier to say no to a stranger than it is to family, right? So one of the things that might be helpful in our closest relationships when we are having to put that boundary up, I like to say, if I'm going to provide that wall, then I'm also going to provide a solution. And so if we are saying, no, we can't come to Sunday dinner every week, I'm making this scenario up. I can't do it every week, but I can do it once a month. And it's because I am focusing on taking care of myself. So if you're saying no to something, that you're kind of also providing a compromise with them. So they'll know that it's not meant to necessarily cut that relationship, but that time is spent investing in yourselves. And so if there's someone who truly cares about you and loves you, they'll understand it. They certainly might feel away, and that's fine. Feelings are fine. And they might tell you that they feel away. Again, that's fine. That doesn't mean that you have to change the boundary.
Thank you for that. Okay, so it sounds like adding that compromise will help everyone.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I
Thank
see a
you.
lot of yes. So a lot of you all can relate to what was being said, and that is so awesome. So awesome. Yes.
All right. Of course, positive feedback in the chat. I want to share that Autumn shared. This is the beneficial and right on time in this moment within their life. So I'm happy that this helped you, Autumn.
Yes. And Tiffany says she has a business buddy that she checks in with bi-weekly. Yes.
Yeah, I saw that because a lot of us, we think we have to stay in our own bubble, but
Mm-hmm.
of course, you share that. No, we should not do this alone.
Absolutely.
And I'm making sure I'm going through the chat. Oh, and for myself, when you mentioned Chick-fil-A, they don't care about us on Sunday.
They do
So
not.
it's and that boundary is clear. So that was very, very helpful. Even if we're paying triple payment, they're not okay.
Yes, so there are certainly some examples all around us of people who are implementing their boundaries. And you see, we adjust. And so know that you have that right to do the same. You certainly should. Yeah. I'm
All
so
right.
glad you all could relate to what was being said. That's fantastic.
Agreed, 100%. All right, does anyone have questions? If you want to send me a private message, I can read it out loud, not sharing any names.
And if you're like me, you might have a question once you log off or 4 hours from now.
Mhm.
So feel free to contact me in any one of these spaces, whether you go to the website or send me an email or send me a message. I won't disappear once this is over. You can feel free to make contact for sure.
I did receive a private question. How did you find your supportive village?
Trial and error. So I started in spaces that were like close to my career. So I would go to like meetups that were happening locally around therapist groups. I would go to digital spaces where therapist groups were, and I would kind of pay attention to the types of comments and questions that people were asking and answering, and kind of got a vibe a little bit from who I was watching and observing, or even how they responded to me in those moments. And I might send them a private message, or if I keep bumping into somebody in the same place, that was also another way that that started to happen. And sometimes there were therapists around me. So I was in office pre-COVID, and there happened to be at least 5 other therapists in the buildings around me. I didn't even realize. And one of the things that we did was we had an open house at the time. And so some of them came and supported me. So there might be people around you who are already supporting you, and they're just kind of in the background because they're not doing it for any other reason than to provide you with support. And so that's kind of a good place to start as well.
That makes sense. Hopefully that helped. That makes sense to me 100%.
Yeah.
All right, we are exactly at time. Dr.
Yay.
Janae, thank you so much again, and I hope people can connect. I'm already connected with you on all of these sites, these platforms. So thank you so much again.
Thank you.
All right, this has concluded our meeting, our workshop. Everyone enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you soon.
Bye.